I'm sorry. The person you called cannot be reached now.
Larry? Does your Ring camera tell you to shut up too?
What are we going to talk about now?
We're going to talk about what I just said. What we're going to talk about.
I wasn't paying attention.
We're going to talk about you eating my pizza.
Yeah!
Yeah. Welcome to LK for everyone. And if you don't know yet, the LK stands for Larry Klayman, and that's LK the number 4, every the number 1. That's where you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, that none of us seem to be on, Twitter and YouTube, and also our host site, amgreatness.com. And joining us again in the studio is one of our fabulous, sometimes contributors, the great Ashley Hamilton, great actor, great songwriter, great friend, great talent on loan from God, as Rush Limbaugh would say. Truly a talented individual. And then there's Larry Klayman.
The ultimate optimist.
Gentleman and Larry Klayman.
The ultimate optimist.
And one of the, you know what, I'm just going to say this. If you really are curious about Larry Klayman, buy his book, Whores. And
you get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon still, or you can
That's
make
not the kind that Pablo pays for, right?
No. But you can make a contribution to Freedom Watch, and I'll send you my 4-volume work, Essays of a Mad Man.
Yes, and the book that I got introduced to you with, and it's only a guy, only a madman would hand a person he just met and a guy that he sort of knew 8 books.
We got to introduce our background guest.
We
have one fan here, Pablo. Pablo, say hi.
Our biggest fan is...
Just so they know you exist in the background.
He's our equivalent of Ed McMahon.
Yeah, we got one fan.
Our Latino Ed McMahon.
Yeah. And in the intro... Okay, you're done.
Probably go back.
Pablo, enough. And in the intro...
I've never seen a camera like that.
And in the interest of full disclosure, he really is a San Francisco 49er fan because he's from there. And I want to tell you something very fascinating.
Not originally from.
I love Larry, and Larry is a very, I don't want to say conspiratorial person because I don't even believe in that word anymore. But you are a person that believes that everybody is watching. And I find it so ironic that in your office, that we won't say where it is, but in your office, you have every single piece of equipment that allows the government to be watching.
Like I said to you earlier, the government...
You got to stop saying that because nobody knows what earlier is.
The government can get into your underwear regardless, okay? I mean, I had a situation where...
Nobody wants to get into your underwear, trust me.
Right.
His girlfriend's in the next room.
But, I mean, I bring a lot of cases against terrorists and people like that. I don't have something on my door or on the marquee. You got to be careful.
Then stop eating in the same place every night. And don't have a watch on your hand.
I hate, as you know, I hate that word conspiracy theorist because that's the word that was used during JFK and all the stuff that happened. The certain organization that's with 3 letters said make sure you say conspiracy theorist. And so what conspiracy theorist does is discredit the information right away.
Well, it's ridiculous because conspiracies happen. It's just 2 people acting in concert to commit a crime. I used to have a bumper sticker at Judicial Watch that said Clinton happens. Conspiracy happens. Okay.
And it is one of those words that to shut people up, right? You call somebody a conspiracy theorist, nobody wants to be labeled that. It's calling somebody a racist, it's calling somebody a homophobe, a transphobe, an Islamophobe. It's the same thing with calling somebody a conspiracy theorist. All of a sudden they're having to defend themselves from not being something.
Well, even when Samsung came out with their TVs, they warned people that they could record people, and it's the number 1 selling TV. I mean, Larry's right about that stuff. They can listen into anything.
They turn it on.
Yeah, that's
it. I was in a soundproof room at the FBI field office in Washington, D.C. with a whistleblower who was allegedly revealing mass surveillance against the American people. And before I went up to this room, the 2 agents said to me, Larry, turn your phone in to the desk here. They'll hold it for you. I said, I can't because I'm expecting a call. I said, well, make sure you turn it off. And I turned it off. I had a Samsung phone. And while I'm sitting there and my client's being videotaped with his interview, he had received immunity, it turns on by itself. And the intelligence agencies wanted to know what was going on. They turned it on.
That's crazy.
See, I don't doubt that at all. And I got to tell you, things that I used to doubt, that I used to be skeptical of, that I would label people as, I truly, I've changed I've found religion on
Give me that old time religion. If it's good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for you.
I'll give you that. That's all Larry claiming. But one of the things I wanted to also talk about was this idea of intellectual honesty. You know, we love to. But when we're talking about Bernie Sanders, I've been hearing this a lot lately, and it really scares me. Bernie Sanders is there's so many things I want to say that I won't say negatively about this person.
Why not?
Because of his faith, and me being of the same faith. He
has no faith. He's an atheist.
It's because it's very inciting,
his
and
ethnicity unfortunately rubs off on the rest of us.
Yeah,
he has no faith.
But literally, if I were president and I were going to be in Wisconsin, and I were going to be like, if I were whoever's going to be debating Bernie Sanders in Wisconsin or any of these other states, I'd be like, so Bernie, how come you didn't invite me to your bar mitzvah? You know, I would keep on bringing up these.
Because he wasn't bar mitzvah.
I know. I'm sort of kidding around to the fact that nobody in Wisconsin or these places will actually vote for him. But
he'd be more likely eating hummus at a mosque.
But I'm just so sick and tired of people calling a socialist, a communist, whatever he considers himself, who had his honeymoon in Russia, an intellectually honest person. That somebody describes himself as a communist or a socialist that's killed over hundreds of millions of people. That they say this person is intellectually honest. This disgusts me.
Socialism, communism, Nazism,
fascism.
It's alive and well, and it's not kosher, so to speak, to use the Bernie theme to say communist. You can say Marxist, but Marxist is communist. And I've been dealing with some communists lately on bar committees and things like this, and how they wind up there. It blows your mind. But these people exist, and they're lurking around us.
They're lurking in Hollywood. I mean, suppression of speech, suppression of free thought is that. I don't care what you want to label it or how you want to label it. That is pretty much the definition, right? You take people's guns, then you take their speech. Okay? That to me is...
Well, Hollywood they're like Italian communists, okay? They got so much money, they got their Gucci shoes, their Hermes belts, their Ferraris, but they're not really communists as far as the way their lifestyle is.
Yeah.
But everybody else can be communist and live, with lesser means.
No, but it frightens me, this romanticism of evil, this romanticism of I don't even know how you make. I mean, I guess the university systems. I don't know this romanticism of Bernie.
Right there.
Yeah, it is.
That's how they start.
That is how they start, because this romanticism of the Bernie Sanders of the world. And let me just tell this to everybody. Go to any temple in Brooklyn, you got one crazy Bernie Sanders sitting in there screaming how everything should be free. Okay? There's nothing cute about him. There's nothing romantic about him. Every synagogue.
So it went from a big discount to free.
But Steve Croft interview, and I love how they like to whitewash that, but it's actually the Steve Croft interview, and I know
he admitted it.
But more than that, I know this because I had written a piece about 4 years ago for the American Spectator, where I called him a Nazi collaborator, and the editor emailed me, or one of the editors, he had emailed me, and he goes, "Oh my God, I had to double fact check you because I didn't want to be sued." He goes, "I just saw the 60 Minute interview where he the worst part was
he doesn't even repent.
He doesn't
say
repent.
sorry.
Right? I don't
But what's so that those people have going for them is that what was it first called, the World Wide Web, right?
Yeah.
The web. What do webs do? They catch people, right? Like everything we say, everything is now put down. It's now on the computer. Every single word, AI and everything. That's it. They have a full digital footprint on you,
and we've allowed it.
And we've allowed it.
And
We're saying, yes, we want more, more. And that's the scariest
Well,
part.
during the Obama
all for
administration,
convenience.
it was widely reported and known that they actually had a subversives list at the FBI. They probably still do. People that they consider who are highly critical, of the government, probably like yours truly. I'm sure I'm on the list. If I'm not, I'd be disappointed.
Yeah.
Don't worry, they have a re-education campaign.
I'm not a subversive, but and these people were targeted. I know this from the work that I did with the mass surveillance after Snowden. These people were targeted for mass surveillance by the intel agencies like the NSA, Director of National Intelligence, CIA. I mean, the rest of us were too, but they were actually pulling up, the communications of these people.
I've heard they've also like messed when they're targeted. They also mess with those people too, and just make their life very tough in certain ways.
And let's shift a little bit. Why do you think nothing gets accomplished in Washington? Why do you think that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, yesterday, despite the fact that the Democrats were acting extremely disrespectful and were very abrasive, I'm using diplomatic words, and didn't even call the White House counsel Cipollone, calls himself Cipollone, with his correct name, the Chief Justice intervened and actually chastised or criticized both the Republicans and the Democrats because he had to, quote, look fair, okay? Because the Democrats and the deep state have a lot of stuff on this Chief Justice, and I believe that's why he flipped on Obamacare at the last minute. So this is what goes on in Washington.
And what's funny
why
is
nothing gets accomplished.
And what's amazing is
they
what
get
I
stuff on all the judges too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? I probably would have been the person that would have said to Larry, like, a couple of years ago, nah, he's just a weak-willed. He's just another one of these sniveling appointees. But you're probably right. You're probably right.
Well, even if they don't have it, these people think that the deep state has it.
Yeah.
And we've seen what happened with Trump, him getting smeared. He can't even make a telephone call and it's not wiretapped, as President of the United States. People around him squealing on what's going on in meetings and making stuff up.
I always think that too. I'm always like, why do you think they call it the Secret Service? Like they're not protecting him. They're like protecting anything getting out from him. Like,
Yeah.
and they're always in the
And
room
it's
with
not
him,
so secret.
always around. I know. It's crazy.
Let me
though.
tell you, during the Clinton years, I had whistleblowers that came into my office at Judicial Watch that would repeat to me things that the Secret Service told them about what they knew about Hillary and Bill. The old joke in Washington, what's the only thing that Hill and Bill have in common? They date the same people.
I thought you were going to say herpes.
Well, no. Well, Clinton has a Peyronie's disease. It leans left. Okay. And Jennifer Flowers gave me all of the statistics on Clinton.
His former client.
My former client. And still friend.
Yeah.
Still friend.
And I just, as I'm watching, as we're watching the events, and which is American history. It's the third president, to be impeached, and we're watching this in front of. And even when we, Ashley brought up a great point, but even before the show, even when we want to turn the TV off and be numb, our phones are sending us messages. Our phones are just sending us, updates on what's going on, and it all depends on what service you go with. Like Apple News has its own,
Well, and you're tracked. I mean, look,
All the algorithms.
Yeah.
Apple has a little device. I don't use an Apple, but it can tell you exactly where your friends are, or your family at any given point in time.
The tracker.
The tracker.
I know.
I
sure
didn't
Samsung can do that
I wasn't
too.
even familiar with this, but you mean if you set your location on?
Yes.
Yeah, I could send you. I could send you
Well,
my
yeah,
location.
but you can have a family plan where they know where you're at every second.
I am on the family
Yeah,
plan.
I
I think
your
your girlfriend has that on you. Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's a misnomer. It's a misnomer that only our intelligence and enforcement agencies have these tools to spy on you. How do you think they got them? It was companies like Google and others that developed it for the government.
Yeah.
They have the same tools
But
that the NSA has.
Do you ever think when you say Apple, what's on the back of an Apple phone?
An Apple. And where is it made?
No, a bite out of the apple, like for Adam and Eve.
Right.
That's
Right.
I know. I never did notice
That's
that.
true. But where is it made? In China.
Yeah, I know. Nobody's complaining about that.
China has back doors that they can use.
Everything.
Okay, so you frightened me.
What is it? They have like China. I think believe like has 5% of this country, and if they backed out overnight, we would collapse. Supposedly, that's a statistic.
Yeah, in terms of the investment.
Yeah.
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 But I remember that James Bond movie where this evil guy wanted
That's
to
every
destroy
James Bond
Silicon
movie.
Valley. He wanted to destroy Silicon Valley.
I think it was the one with Jonathan Pryce.
Yeah.
Go digger.
And at the end of the movie, the Russians are aiding the Americans in preventing it, and a Russian general says to the Russian premier, "Why is it that we wanted to save Silicon Valley?" And he says, "Where do you think we get all our technology?"
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean
truth
it's
to that.
there's 100% truth to it, and it's sort of a frightening thing. But the other frightening thing is that story that got reported a week or so ago was with Jeff Bezos with Apple, and the prince from Saudi Arabia getting his phone number at a dinner and then sending him malware. And then getting into his phone, which might have been the way that the National Enquirer got the pictures of Jeff Bezos. The thing that nobody's asking is, what is Jeff Bezos doing with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia? Now, I get it that we as a country have to deal with these people.
He's probably his pimp.
Or whatever it is. It's sort of, remember, Jeff
He was
Bezos.
hanging out with Epstein. And
Remember, Jeff Bezos runs the biggest, runs one of the biggest newspapers in America.
Isn't it great that if you're a devout Wahhabi Muslim, okay, you're not supposed to be screwing around, drinking, carrying on, and they all have these big yachts in Monaco, and they're partying it up.
Yeah.
And it's good for everybody but them.
Any place but here.
Or Dubai. Why does Dubai continue to exist? I think the most corrupt city probably in the world, where all this Iranian Revolutionary Guard money is laundered.
Wow.
For terrorism. How is it that they exist when it's completely abhorrent to the principles of so-called Islam? Because they're paying money to keep from getting their throats slit.
And they allow
to
and all the actors and celebrities that go to Dubai,
a bunch of whores,
and perform there for millions of dollars, and then come out and say how bad we are, or how bad you literally are going to this place. Where
I've had girls go, "Oh, I just got back from Dubai."
I gotta tell you
I'm like,
something.
okay.
I developed. Everybody goes through
funny.
bad periods in their life. Everybody hits the skids, and any great
none of us,
any major figure in the Bible went through tough times.
Yeah.
God tested them.
Yeah.
Okay. And I developed a great deal of respect for Tiger Woods over the last few years. I never liked him that much, actually, because I thought he was arrogant. But I actually started to like the guy. And one thing that he did recently, he refused to take $3 million to go to Dubai. He wasn't going to. Of course, he doesn't need the $3 million, but on principle, he did not go.
Yeah, we could go off on a tirade about his comeback. That guy's a ninja, next level. What he did.
He's great. There's no question. He's more likable now because he failed.
Yeah, right. That's what I said.
Yeah.
He can't, people that come back and resurrect themselves.
That's what I said last episode. Adversity makes a man, right?
Yeah.
It was great.
No, you're right though. It's like people. That's why we're in a society that's okay with people apologizing. Like if you actually just made a mistake and you screwed up and but it's there doesn't need to be this grand cover-up. Just come out and then you could be
say it and redeem yourself.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun watching him, and I know it turned many people off that he got invited to the White House and took that the Presidential Medal of Honor. But who cares? You know what I mean? Like this guy Joe Burrow, he goes, when LSU won the football game, he tweeted, he goes, I don't care if you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, or you don't like politics, or you do like politics. He goes, this is a great experience. And I'm paraphrasing. Just going to the White House is a great experience, and I don't care whose watch it is on there. If you get invited to the White House, it's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
Well, and in fairness, I thought at the time that he probably didn't deserve it, but I rethought it because somebody who does recognize his failings and corrects them and picks himself up off the mat.
He's one of the greatest golfers of all time, if not the greatest golfer of all time. Of course, he deserves the award,
at
they.
At the present, I still think Nicklaus edges him out, but he probably will finish as the greatest golfer.
Okay, listen, I have no horse in this race. You can argue with my girlfriend. I don't care.
No, I really like Tiger Woods.
Yeah, but I have no horse in the golf, greatness race.
I didn't play golf for 5 years. I took it up again. Do you play golf, actually? No.
But you were a huge Tyson fan, right? You still probably are. You liked Mike Tyson. I mean, it was the same thing. When he was trying to come back each time, you were like, come on, man. You just kept on holding out hope that the champ would return.
Yeah, I did get so bored of paying for his pay-per-views and watching him because it'd be over and around.
Yeah.
And like you're just like, okay, like he's got to at least go down once. Yeah. And then Buster Douglas came along, and you're like, oh, and that's when it was all started to unravel.
Yeah, it's amazing how one event in this person's life, the one
was all the life stuff. Too.
Yeah,
there's another example, Muhammad Ali. Before that, okay, Muhammad Ali had his flaws. Okay, I really idolized the guy, but they took away his crown. He came back. He actually, was a devout black Muslim, and he believed it. He was fleeced by his own people. Didn't die with much money. But he was pure at what he believed, and you can respect somebody who actually believes in what they're
as long as they're not
doing.
running for president. Okay, this is where the difference is. You're right, Ali. I respect what he did with the.
One question:
Yeah,
Muhammad Ali in his prime or Mike Tyson in his prime?
I have to go with Muhammad Ali. First of all, I met him.
I would imagine everybody would say. I would
imagine
Tyson would say Ali.
I don't know, man.
It's an interesting
Because-
story, guys.
I don't think Muhammad Ali's
hold
ever
on,
been
this is-
hit. He's never been
you gotta
hit by.
remember-
He's never been
you gotta-
hit by anybody like Mike Tyson.
You got to remember when Ashley and I were growing up, Tyson was a god. I mean, there was a video
Well,
game.
we're a different generation.
Yeah, so to us, even though
Yeah.
intellectually we know we know it's Ali, but we grew up watching the Champ. I mean, and we've both met the Champ, and there wasn't, you just rooted for the guy.
Well, let me tell you when I met Ali, because I grew up in
Bogota.
Overbrook Park in Philadelphia, and my parents had a house. They sold it to a white family. We moved to the main line, to Penn Valley, where the school system was a little better. And that house was then resold to a black racketeer named Major Coxon, who was,
Jesus.
no pun intended.
Yeah.
And Coxon was a con man. He would, go into banks in Philadelphia with a lot of his black followers, and they'd eat ribs in the lobby, and they would extort money from the bank when he offered to take his followers out. I mean, the guy was, but he invited every major black actor and politician and entertainer, and he invited Muhammad Ali there. And I found out because my family was still friendly with the next door neighbors. So I went over there, I knocked on the door, I said, I want to meet the Champ. And I came in, it was when he was in exile, because of the draft. Very shy, very demure. He had a little girl sitting on his lap, probably was his daughter in some respect. But he was really a nice person and very modest. It was an act, what you saw.
Listen, I think he was probably very insecure, whatever it was, and you're right.
Well, he wasn't insecure, believe me.
I'm sure in some respects he was, but in him not wanting to go to Vietnam, all the great respect, but just because I intellectually,
Well, I don't agree with saying I'm not going to die in no white man's war. I don't agree with that. But look, everybody has their shtick. You know?
And he believed it.
And frankly, it was a disaster, that war. So I can't blame him for that.
You think?
55,000 people dead.
And but there's a difference between Muhammad Ali being intellectually honest and Bernie Sanders, getting back to Bernie Sanders, being intellectually honest. And it is a scary thing when we hold up these people. Like Tiger Woods, I love the comeback story, but I'm not going to, I don't really care about his views or whatever it is. It's like this idea of... it could become very dangerous because intellectual honesty became the new... they didn't really know any better. It's they just don't know.
Well, Hitler was intellectually honest.
Yeah.
He wanted to kill all the Jews, the gypsies.
Yeah, he was right. He was
the mental
anybody
effect.
that was
right. The gays, the
infirm, the retarded people.
I mean, everybody, they're all intellectually.
Super race.
It's an insane thing. Harvey Weinstein, right? It's like, say to the next person, that says.
I love how you segue from Hitler to Harvey Weinstein.
No.
By the way,
Boxing to
no, because we live in Hollywood. We live in Hollywood where everybody says that Bernie Sanders. Everybody in Hollywood says that Bernie Sanders is intellectually honest. Well, so was Harvey Weinstein.
I
right?
have a friend who named his dog Harvey Weinstein. So
Yeah.
he walks down the street. Women say, "Gee, that's a cute dog. What's his name?" Harvey Weinstein.
George Foreman has his grill.
It's really funny you say that because years ago Ben Stein adopted me a dog and we named the dog Nixon.
I remember
And you don't know what it was like when that dog would run away in Runyon Canyon, and I'm running around screaming Nixon, 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 and people
Did they take you away?
People would look at me like you deserve to have lost that dog. Okay, the dog just would run away, and
Well, today nobody even knows who Nixon is, so you don't
Yeah,
have
I'm
to worry
surprised. Yeah.
that's
You almost lost your arm to that because he was so
you
strong.
separated my shoulder, that dog, as he ran away from me. It was like a pointer. Ben got me a
What
German.
happened to him?
about it. Where's that dog today?
He's on a farm somewhere, and he was a bit defective, and he was out of his mind. This dog,
Like a doggy farm way up.
Yes,
in the
that's
sky.
That's exactly right. And I felt terrible, and I love this dog, but this dog
That's
was
Judah, Larry. Get used to it.
Did you kill it?
no. Somebody else probably did, but I would never kill a dog. But I have no idea. Hopefully
Dogs are
somebody,
the best animals on
came
earth.
and adopted this dog. But this notion of intellectual honesty, of speaking your truth, there is none. It drives me crazy. This play on words. It's the same thing with the pronouns. It's using words to dominate. And that's what it's doing when you take away when you take away the pronouns. When you say, well, that's their truth. How do you argue? How do you say that makes no sense? You can't go to court and say, well, that's her truth. She didn't rob the place. It's her truth. But we have it on camera. But it's her truth. It's his truth. They didn't do it. You know, and it's like we're willing to let people get away.
And this gets into, I respect the Catholic religion. I have kids who are Catholic, as a matter of fact. And I've married several of them.
Yeah. You've done well.
But I've never quite understood the concept of confession. Okay, so you get to confess, you can leave and in 5 minutes commit the same act and come back and confess and you're absolved again. I mean, there's a limit. How many times do you get to confess?
Larry says he was raised Jewish and molested Catholic.
It's cute.
Yeah, Ashley is
No,
one.
I respect the Catholic religion. It's not for me in terms of the pomp and circumstance. I'm a Jewish Christian, and we can do a whole show on that.
Yeah,
But,
that's okay.
Which is really close anyway. But like I think it's whatever works for
for anybody.
Whatever gets you there.
Yeah.
Truth,
Whatever
And it's
gets
like
you
that
there.
about politics too. That's the thing. It's like whatever you're allowed to believe. You could have different belief system. You could have different ideas on different things. You could be pro this and anti this. You don't. It's like what you were saying on a past show. It's like we've become that you have to pick this. There's only one. There's two sides. There's two teams.
What's scary though is that law is basically really, if you look at it, based on so much religion, which they're getting rid of in schools and places. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God. One nation under God. Like there's so much stuff that's based on that.
Our entire country is based on that.
Yeah,
Declaration of Independence, divine providence.
Yeah. So what does you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth to help you God mean when you start just getting rid of all that stuff and throwing it down the sink? And that's
And then you got to figure out which God we're talking about. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, there have been some Muslim Congress women and men that wouldn't take the oath with the Bible. They wanted the Quran.
Yeah. But I'm saying how strong it really plays. We say that church and state are separate, but they're not.
Right.
Listen to all the wording and
Yeah,
everything.
it's not.
It's like based on that. That's how
It's
Our
almost
legal system
impossible.
is based on
Yeah.
the Judeo-Christian.
Yeah.
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 And that's what they're trying to do. So every time you hear people saying they're trying to reshape America and reshape our values, and this isn't. It's funny. Sometimes I hate that I have to defend this side, or sometimes I hate that I defend this side. But on this one, they're completely right. When you try to get God away from everything, when you try to get, even though I don't know where I lay on the spectrum of believing and all this stuff, but I'm always going to defend the believer than the person that's trying to sue the believer. I'm always going to protect those.
They have a right.
It drives me crazy.
As long as it's a legitimate religion.
Yes, as
and
long
not
as
some
it's
cult.
Yes.
Right. As long as you're not Charles Manson.
But I mean, we grew up doing Pledge Allegiance to the flag, and prayers and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it scares me when you start getting rid of the God factor or the spirituality factor, whatever you want to say that's tied in with the law, out of it, then really where does it end? Then we go back to like you can continue with that all the way you want.
When I was in elementary school, and right through junior high school, we said the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
I was a Jewish kid. I didn't take offense with that.
Yeah.
No, the only reason I've ever taken offense with it at a certain sort of society that some people attend is because I didn't know what it was. I'd been raised my whole life in a Jewish household. I heard the Lord's Prayer the first time, and I was like, "What the hell?"
There was a certain envy that we didn't have a Christmas tree at some point.
But this is always where my brain goes, Larry and Judah. My brain goes like, okay, like. I believe in a lot of stuff, and I read the Bible, but then you like a New Testament, you're like, okay, so out of 12 disciples, the only 2 were there with Jesus, and they wrote that 40 years later, right? In there, and when Rome decided they want to make that a religion, and so you start to wonder what was left in and taken out. What about like Gospel of Thomas and stuff? If you read through Gospel of Thomas and his stuff is just what Jesus said. No fairy tale, like it's the facts, and it hits hard. And so you start to wonder, what is a society like an empire, like Rome or the United States, deciding what they want in there and not in there?
Well, it doesn't. To me, it doesn't matter because, and I've said this to Judah before. I had at least 2 experiences, maybe 3, where I felt Jesus was communicating with me, and that's when I became a Christian. I believe my grandfather came to this country. I I told Judah that he wanted to be a rabbi initially. Instead, he went into the pork packing business. But they asked him at Ellis Island, what birthday do you want? Because he didn't know. A little kid from the Ukraine didn't know at that time, right after the Russian Revolution. And he said, give me Christmas. If it's good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me. Right? And my grandfather had a good ego. He was a very humble guy, though. And I said to him, I used to call him Pop-Up. I said, Pop-Up, do you think that Jesus was the Son of God? And I grew up in mainline Philadelphia where everybody was mixed. We didn't really think people were different, religiously. And he said, well, grandson, God can do whatever he wants. I don't doubt it.
And you were listening to The Hour of Power with
Now,
Larry Klayman.
But years
Ashley
later,
Hamilton.
I went to Duke. I was maybe part of 1% of a Jewish population at Duke in 1969, and I had to figure out who I was because it was the first time I experienced anti-Semitism. I was rushed by a fraternity, and they said, go over to the Jewish fraternity. You're not going to join here. And I said, I don't want to be a member of either of your fraternities, frankly. I'm my own man.
Good for you.
And I told my dad I want to get out of Duke. He says, no, you're staying. I said, I thought maybe Yale didn't have this fraternity system, so I thought maybe I would think about going there, and thank God he didn't let me. But I developed an appreciation for who I was. I took courses on Judaism at Duke. And later, the experiences which I had, I'll tell you my testimony quickly. Okay?
Very quickly.
I was fighting Clinton. They were coming after me. They were trying to destroy me, my family, my colleagues, and everything. My grandmother, Yetta, had just died. It was a bad period of my life. And I went to a Catholic church in Georgetown with my then wife and my 2 young kids. And I'm standing there at Christmas, and the altar boys come by. A week earlier, a friend of mine, who was an evangelical minister, read to me the book of Isaiah, which, forecast the coming of Jesus. Evangelicals like Isaiah, they quote it as much as they do the New Testament. And he said, Larry, is anything bothering you? I said, no, nothing's bothering me. I mean, I'm fighting the Clintons. That's tough. But, I've always gravitated not just to Jewish people, but to Christian people. And intellectually, I believe that Jesus was the Son of God. How could somebody be that popular? How could he have touched so many people if he wasn't? He says, well, Larry, you don't have to be Christian. You don't have to convert. Stay what you are. And this was an evangelical told me that, Bob Reith, who runs a group.
Hi, is this Joel Osteen? Hi, I'm busy right now. I'm in the middle of a podcast. Jesus is here. Leave us alone.
We got Joel Myers.
Oh, my God.
This is not Talladega Nights at the table.
Oh my God.
Larry, can I ask a question?
Yeah, let Pablo ask a question.
Wait.
Yeah.
Let me finish the story, then you'll ask a question, Pablo.
Yes.
Okay, so
You're not
I'm
done?
coming to the end. So it was a week later that I was in this Catholic church, and the altar boys come by, and I feel this tremendous warmth and adulation saying, Larry, I do exist. You can accept me. That was the first time. Okay? So I don't need to engage in Bible study. I mean, I would like to. I like to know what's in the Bible. I'd like to learn more. And I know a great deal already. But I had that personal experience.
No, I feel you.
You see?
It
happened 10 years
You're
later
in a room
again.
with people
No,
that have
I
had
agree.
different personal experiences with different
But
personal things
that's-
and we're not in any way mocking your.
That's what it's about. Is in the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
In the
proud
heart.
of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't mock it.
Pablo, ask Larry a
Yeah, tell me.
question.
This is
the point.
One question.
Larry,
This
this
is
is
it, bro.
question.
You got to
One
come to the
question.
microphone.
One question, Larry.
Speak up.
Okay, one question, Larry. Okay, so Jesus and Mary, right? They were in planet Earth, right?
More or less.
And there was like that.
I don't know about implanted.
There was that place where like you couldn't have nothing from the
Hit
tree,
all-time
right?
low.
Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve, right?
Right.
So wouldn't it be cool to go and find that place? Because it's in Earth, so how come nobody has gone over there?
Well, I have
You
been to
can sit
Israel
down.
4 times. Okay. And
That's a good question.
I have been to Israel 4 times, and I crawled into a little cave in the Church of the Sepulchre, in the Arab quarter of Jerusalem. You probably have been there.
I don't know. I've some so.
It's Judah there.
Judah spent time in Israel.
Yeah, that's exactly
right.
Yeah.
I mean, now if you go,
You gotta cut that out. 'Cause people
Now
might
if you go,
think-
you'll get stabbed on the way. By some
funny.
crazy Palestinian.
Yeah.
But, when I went,
You said it.
but I crawled into the cave and I prayed, and I came out and I had this. I was dizzy, and I mean, it was like I was communicating with him, at the spot where he was crucified. And so I said to a friend, "What happened?" He said, "Well, Larry, you were making a local call."
Ah, I like that.
No,
Yeah.
it's very heavy.
No, listen. We've all listen. We're
heavy.
busting. Listen, both of us, Pablo included,
I went to
have
the
our
Wailing
own,
Wall.
have our
I paid
own,
homage
have-
to
yeah.
my Jewish side. You know,
have our own. All had our own spiritual.
I'm a Zionist.
It's great. You don't have to defend it, Larry. We're okay.
Okay.
We're not gonna.
That's who I am.
We're not. You are.
He was a great speaker, Jesus, too. I mean, his last set didn't go so well.
Well, he
I'm
told
so
Pontius
okay.
Pilate to shove it. Didn't he?
So, you got to cut that out because now I just.
It's a
forgive
great
me.
scene in Passions of the Christ, isn't it?
Yes.
When he sits standing there with Pontius Pilate,
I cried too in that movie. I
and
did.
Pontius Pilate says to him, "Look, just say you're not the Son of God, and I can save you." And he tells Pontius Pilate, "Who are you to tell me that I'm not?" I'm just paraphrasing.
No.
And can I? And
I cried during that
I
movie.
just want to say something very quickly. Like if you're just
I did.
tuning
That
in.
movie touched
if
me.
you're just tuning in or whatever, these are the conversations I hope people have stopped having. These are the conversations that you could have at a diner at 2 a.m, Greenblatt's at 3 a.m, any different place you want to go. These are the conversations I believe as humanity we've lost. Because everybody is so, especially where we are.
Just for the record, I'm a Jesus believer. I just like to laugh sometimes. That's all.
Well, Jesus had a sense of humor.
Yeah, that's
If you get crucified, you better have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
But I just want people to understand these are the conversations that we've lost as a society. That we've lost. You were talking about before in the last podcast. Has it ever been this? That people could feel the tension.
Yeah.
That your friends could feel the tension out there, and you can. It's so thick.
No, and I think too, like the whole thing, like Jesus' point, to go back to what you were saying, is like the kingdom of heaven is within inside you, and that's really what it's about. It's not about what's written on a paper.
And if you open your heart,
Oh,
he
man.
will come to you.
Do you want a hug?
I believe that. Yeah.
No, I do. I believe that too. I do.
I'm not talking about
Judas
Field of
texting.
Dreams either.
Okay. No, but I do think like that stuff's so important right now, and getting stuff right in your life, whatever that is. Just because there is so much tension and so much hate right now, like it's like the dying empire, right? I mean, every empire, like Rome, has 6 stages, and the last stage of an empire is the death of an empire, which is overspending on military, not enough resources, more class between rich and poor, games, and all the overspending on military, like I said. And so you start looking at that, and you're like, what does that empire look like?
Well, we're essentially barbarians. That's
But
the
it
problem,
looks like the American, United States empire now is at the end of
like the British Empire.
or the end of Roman Empire. Like it was the same thing. So
Open the gates.
yeah, and so look over here, all the stuff's going on. Why we're sinking and nobody's really noticing what's going
We're
on.
rotting from within.
Correct.
I'm just loving listening to this. I got to be honest because,
Yeah, and as we play-
I'm just to get back to, I love listening to this, and like I'm sort of like being like a kid in a room listening to this stuff because it's just fun sometimes to listen to people talk about stuff sometimes I don't always know about stuff that you're being, like you
Well,
said.
you're not a real Jew then, because Jews never listen to what anybody says.
And
He's Jewish, people. He can say that. I can't.
Did you convert just so you could insult Jews?
Yeah, and that's also why I'm a Republican, so I can insult Republicans.
So, would you consider yourself to be an intellectually honest person?
I do. I mean, that's one of my faults. That's how I get myself into hot water frequently, because I can't pull punches. I have to say what I believe.
Yeah.
And, one of the nicest things that was ever said about me was Joseph Farrer, WorldNet Daily. I write for WorldNet Daily. And Joseph's been my friend for many years. And when the Washington Post did a cover story about me for their new magazine, Weekend Magazine, which is what this show's title is kind of a play on, Larry Klayman versus everyone, as opposed to Larry Klayman for everyone.
Yeah.
What Joseph said was, the thing about Larry Klayman is that he doesn't do what's in his self-interest. He does what he thinks is right. And that was one of the nicest things that anybody ever said. Because I've never been a lawyer that put my own interest ahead of my client.
Yeah.
And sometimes those clients don't deserve me in terms of the way I've tried to help them, candidly.
And you're both, in a sense, I should open the show, but you're a very creative person, and it's hard sometimes, I would imagine. It's like you got to go with your path. You got to go where you're being intellectually honest as far as like being with your creativity. If something bores you, you stop. If something doesn't interest you, you stop.
Are we talking about sex?
No, but you know what I'm referring to.
Premature ejaculation.
Viagra gets me up to 2 minutes. We're taking an all-time low on the Larry Klayman show. No, I guess, it just depends,
No, because you're going after these certain really cool things right now that are totally separate from another type of world.
I'm just at a belief of do what you love and whatever that is, and if it switches, sometimes it switches for me. Do it because I don't know how much time's left in the world, and so I want to just enjoy my life. Yes, I got to make a living and do certain things, but like certain things that I think we're programmed to think mean so much really don't. I mean, look at Australia. You don't think Australia's coming here? You think it's just Australia? 1 million animals die? Like, you don't think that's another show, but like we're so used to just thinking, oh, it's those people over there, and that will be on our doorstep soon, and along
those
with,
animals may be us.
correct, and with the civil unrest and the collapse, and all this stuff. I'm not saying anything that anybody sitting here doesn't know.
Carpe diem.
Yeah, but it's stupid to not think that that's not going to happen. We're so stimulated with so much stuff in our face
so
that
much
we're not
shit,
seeing what's really happening.
No, you're completely right. If you asked anybody, because we're running out of time, if you asked anybody right now what's going on, if most Americans, what's going on in Australia right now, most Americans would not be able to tell you that they're on fire.
Well, most Americans don't know what's going on now.
Yeah.
And look, let's get back to how we started this. Let's look at these impeachment proceedings. It's political masturbation. That's what it is.
Circus.
Yeah. It's just unbelievable. It's appalling. It's disgusting. But the only good thing is nobody's watching.
Well, it's the same thing as but they do this over here, and while we're all looking over here, they're slowly taking, our wallets. It's a whole divide and conquer thing. Divide and conquer, and whatever's left will come in.
Every time you said that, I keep on, there's a certain word for this, like the bait and switch. They're bait and switching us.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank Ashley, again, another brilliant episode with the great Ashley Hamilton. And also, obviously,
and
Larry,
the greater
Larry Klayman. I just want to say thank you for allowing us to ask you questions. And you, I want thank you for
Well, we're all in this together.
No,
one
I know,
for all
but
and all for one.
I know, but I
the
want
Three Musketeers as opposed to the Three Stooges.
But I just want to thank you because you've been through it all, and it's important to have a guide as far with certain things, and you are that guide. So I just really want to thank you, Larry. You're a good man.
Thank you.
And I want everybody to know you could listen to us at amgreatness.com. Also, find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at LK4 every 1. And I just want to thank you guys again. And
Mutually.
We're done.
Stick a fork in us.
Okay.
She'll be happy now that it's
That was good.
Quiet.
I gave the pause.
We covered a lot of ground.